you. May we remain standing to open in prayer with Pastor Tundi.
Shall we pray? O Lord, our Redeemer, we are thankful for another winter season. We are grateful to you that you kept us and preserved us from the escalation in the war in Ukraine. Father, we magnify you above all the tension and the chaos of this war that it has cost us in this country and in our communities. O Lord God, we bring that you will help us to wipe out all this disruption and that this war will come to an end. We thank you for the government of our Royal Majesty the King. We bring before you the autumn statement that has been presented today at Westminster. Father, grant the government, the opposition, and the entire Parliament the wisdom to walk through this implementation so that the best possible outcome will come to us and we will have the joy of a good season. We particularly commit this council meeting tonight unto your hands in Hillingdon. O Lord, direct all our deliberations. Father, we ask that you lead the cabinet and steer them in the right direction that this council will have success. Father, bless the mayor, bless the leader of the council, bless the leader of the opposition, bless all our councillors. We thank you for the amazing work that you do all across Hillingdon. Father, we thank you for the peace and the tranquility of our communities. Let this winter, this Christmas, and the rest of this financial year be crowned with abundance in our community, in our homes. Father, in our hospitals, let this winter be a joyful time of healing. Let our nurses and our care homes, Father, have a time of due diligence and help from you, that they may perform their duties in a way that peace and healing will come to our people. Father, we thank you for tonight. We bless and honor you in gratitude. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Just before we start, can I just have a reminder? Can everyone please check their phones are off or on silence, please? I will give you a couple of seconds to check your telephones. Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome to Hillingdon's council meeting today, the 17th of November 2022. We will start as on the order sheet. Point 1, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have apologies from Councillors Gardner, Lackmana and Nelson.
Thank you. Are there any other apologies? No, thank you. We shall move on to order number 2, the minutes of the last meeting, which you have with you. Has everyone read the minutes, received them, and are they agreed? Thank you. We move on to order point 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest in the matters arising today? No, I will take that as a no. And now we move on to the Mayor's announcements. I cannot believe, actually, that we are halfway through the memorial year, and there has been so much to be thankful for in our borough. Here in Hillingdon, as we know, we belong to an extraordinary community, a community that really has a heart for others. Over the last couple of months, we have been acknowledging the tireless and continual service of us all here. Councillors, officers and staff, and how we all connect to our community groups and businesses to support each other as a council. How we work hard in our communications and supporting and serving others. This has shown throughout our borough in many ways. Recently, we joined in a celebration of a resident who was over 100, and she was still volunteering in Ruislip. The parlour has been immensely busy celebrating and thanking the community, thanking our organisations such as the Scouting, the Guiding, the Boys Brigade and Cadets, all of which take up their valued time in their belief in teaching the generations to follow us morals and conduct. The commitment of our council in connecting with charities and multi-faith organisations in providing for those in need is so important, especially in the months ahead. And this has been demonstrated with various events around the borough, including the H for All road shows. We've also been gathering the churches and sharing and communicating to our community where to go for a warm place, where the soup kitchens are and the food banks. And this has been right across the borough. We celebrated last month the Hillingdon Hospital Staff Awards and how they were overcoming and working for the lives and the benefit of others. The charities and community groups, all of which have given and continue to give their valued time. The Forget-Me-Nots Dementia football team celebrated 4-year partnership with Hillingdon Council last month. Brunel University has been really proactive in our borough, bringing people together with many ways, including seeing the year's edition of the Hillingdon Herald and their creative connections. We've also been celebrating some really outstanding awards. The Queen's Award, which went to Rycip Old Folks Association, to their volunteers and their staff for reaching out. We thanked our local Hayes yeoman, Terry Briggs, who serves the tower and served during the vigil of the coffin of our late Queen. We went to New Year's Green Lane and celebrated with the workers, and also Power Day, our team of officers who work over and above to support our community. The recycling bay, the mending workshops, and the areas where we've encouraged residents to recycle and donate and save their pennies. Here in Hillingdon, as you know, we have an incredible history, and this month we saw the marking of the first ever CT scanner, which was actually made in EMI many years ago. Our charities have also played an active part in our community, and we are forever thankful that we as Hillingdon Council are supporting them this year. The Daniela Logan Foundation had their awareness event, which was held at St Paul's Church, Useley, and was really well attended. We've managed to connect to them to local hospitals and hospices, assisting them in finding a space. The Magical Marvellous Picture House, our other charity, has been building connections with the community together, and the volunteers now have a shop and a base in the pavilions. Do go down and make time and see them. Finally, the last sellout fundraiser, I Say, where the history of England was played out to an audience, was absolutely amazing. And it even included the old-fashioned swimwear. And we do wonder why people worry about what our children wear today compared to the men's swimwear many years ago. The long johns are very revealing. We raised over £2,200 for the charity. And we'd like to say a thank you to the staff, to Joe and Sue, and Chris and Andy who helped. Our thanks also goes out tonight to all those serving here in the council, all the councillors, and everyone serving in the roles of the community. And as I'm halfway through, I'd like to thank my consorts and escorts, Marios, Polly, Ellie, and my mum who stood in. My final thanks, though, go to our Deputy Lieutenant Bruce Holder, who, as you know, has now retired. We held a wonderful thank you reception in the parlour with past mayors, and Bruce's words echo the thoughts of so many people in Hillingdon. Bruce said, Hillingdon has been the wellspring of friendship and support, and we shall always cherish that. I think they're lovely, lovely words. But just before I finish, I may have to say two words that I'm sure you really don't want to hear yet, but it is the last council meeting before Christmas. So, unfortunately, I have to say and wish you well over the Christmas period. Thank you very much. We can move now on to order number 5, which is the report of Head of Democratic Services, and I shall pass over to the leader, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. The report at agenda item 5 is in 3 parts, which, with your permission, I will move together. The first part concerns change to the Constitution consequent to us automating some of the member inquiry process. It is set out quite clearly the changes that are expected as a consequence of that. The second item is a minor change around our governance, which combines the Appointments Committee and Appointments Subcommittee to get rid of unnecessary cumbersome governance that existed. It has no change in effect in terms of its powers or the membership when it comes to the selection of senior officers. And the final part relates to the Health and Wellbeing Board membership. I move that the 3 recommendations are agreed.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Madam Mayor, I second and reserve my right.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No? Okay, is that agreed? Move on now to order 6, the adoption of the Council Strategy 2022 to 2026. Our leader of the Council, Councillor Edwards.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. The strategy, which is at Appendix 1, pages 29 in the pack, is a statement of how this Council will put its residents first, of what they can expect from us and what we are committed to deliver. It has within it the 5 themes: safer and stronger communities, thriving and healthy households, a green and sustainable borough, a successful local economy, and of course a digitally enabled, modern, well-run council. This is underpinned and flowing throughout it all is our sound financial management. The strategy provides a framework for determining competing demands, which is important in the financially constrained circumstance that we exist now and we anticipate we will face moving forwards. It informs our spending and our investment plans up to 2026. The adoption of the strategy requires the Council's approval. It has been subject to public consultation and examination by the select committees, and that is reported at Appendices 2 and 3, pages 33 onwards. There has been good support for the themes, and there has been a good response across the borough, both north and south. It has been considered by the Cabinet twice. I'd like to thank the officers for their hard work in the construct of the strategy and the management of the consultation process. And I commend the strategy to this chamber and move the recommendation that it be adopted as part of the Council's policy framework. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am pleased to second this report and reserve my right.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No. Is that agreed? Here we now move on to the questions from members, order number 7, and we go straight on to 7.1. Question submitted by Councillor Gohill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Will the Cabinet member update the Council on the progress of the Hayes regeneration project, please?
Councillor Avery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Gohill for your question. The 2 redevelopment projects we are undertaking in Hayes Town Centre and on the Avondale Estate in Hayes represent a significant investment in our council housing stock. Before undertaking the project, there was extensive consultation with local residents on the benefits scheme to them and their rights to a new property on the estate. As a result of this excellent work by officers in the Council Housing Tenancy Management team, in May 2021, there was an overwhelming vote in favour of regeneration on both estates, an outcome that has not always been achieved by other councils. Following the vote, the project team, led by the Corporate Director Perry Scott, has mobilised at pace to deliver key milestones to enable residents to enjoy their new homes as soon as possible. Following the extensive design consultation with residents, the Council has received planning consent for its proposals, and that will provide 740 high-quality new homes, 50% of whom are affordable for existing residents. And I would at this point say that Phase 1 will contain a high proportion of socially rented homes. It will also have an enhanced public realm, community spaces and connectivity to the wider area that will benefit everyone in Hayes. At the same time, the Council has run a competitive process to find an experienced developer partner to help us deliver this scheme. We are delighted to say that Higgins Partnership have now started on site. And the first phase of the development ran a very successful Meet the Developer event in the half term to introduce themselves to our residents. Regeneration projects are complex and prone to delays, so getting on site is important, and to recognise that we have made this level of progress in a short space of time is a real achievement and a testament of the interest and involvement of the residents of both estates. We will continue to honour all of the commitments in our landlord offer to residents to retain existing communities, which means that council tenants have the right to return to one of the new homes, but can also choose to move off the site if they wish. We hope that residents will choose to stay and benefit from the fantastic transformations on its way. We would hope for the first new homes ready for occupation in 2025. In closing, I wish to thank all of the officers, led by Perry Scott and his senior management team, that have worked and continue to work that this scheme will be delivered as we have promised. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Avery. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Gohill?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We shall move on to 7.2 on the question sheet, submitted by Councillor Makwana.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What success has the Council had using natural flood prevention to protect residents from flooding?
And Councillor Lavery again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Makwana for your question. Natural flood management is the process by which interventions are designed to work with the natural flood processes as opposed to constraining them. Embankments, river defences, storage tanks and artificial hard engineering storage basins are not natural flood management activity, although in the right circumstances they can provide valuable respite, particularly in urban areas. Natural flood management techniques can include the creation of new ponds at strategic points of rivers, natural in-watercourse channel dams, or planting of new wetlands. The purpose of all of these interventions is to slow down the movement of water rather than merely move it faster to somewhere else, and allow the water to take its natural path but at a slower pace. The advantage of this is that it stops the water channels being flooded, and particularly as we get more of the rainstorms we've seen recently, where we get very high intensity rain very quickly. The Council has used its own green space in a more active manner to study floodwater, and we have 3 recently completed projects in Bessenby Park, which was in my old ward but is now part of East Coast, and in Elephant Park and Court Park in Hillingdon East. All use a form of natural flood management by holding the flows and discharging the water within the green space area. The projects have been completed this year, but the feedback on Bessenby Park is already that it has provided significant benefits to the residents who used to experience flooding, and this was seen most notably during the heavy rainfall in October just gone. These solutions will in the long term help to contribute to a more diverse environment with different flora responding to the wetter environments which in turn has benefits from a more diverse range of fauna. Finally, as some of you will be aware, the Environment Agency has currently a round of applications open for natural flood management, and the Council is working on a series of applications with interested partners to deliver work in the Ruislip area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor McWan?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We now move on to question 7.4 by Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a preface to me asking the question, can I just say that I sat with colleagues on the Audit Committee on Tuesday evening to hear Alex Brown, the head of counter fraud, report on just how effective his team had been in quarter 2.
Sorry, I need to interrupt you. Can you just ask the question, please? It's not about... Please, can you just ask the question that's on the order sheet?
I'm pleased to ask question 7.4 as set out on the order book.
Thank you very much. And that is going to be answered by Councillor Goddard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Lewis for the question. Madam Mayor, our counter-fraud team supports the Council in meeting its statutory responsibility under Section 151 of the Local Government Act 1972, as far as concerns the prevention and detection of fraud and corruption. The work of the counter-fraud team underpins the Council's commitment to a zero-tolerance approach towards fraud, bribery, corruption and other irregularities, including money laundering. As well as counter-fraud activity, the team also conducts a range of other types of investigative work which do not necessarily have a criminal element to them, such as revenue inspections and disciplinary investigations. There is also a range of preventative work that the team is responsible for, such as fraud awareness, training, and ensuring the Council has up-to-date and appropriate corporate investigation policies and procedures. The team also leads on the Council's assessment of the risk of fraud and corruption across all Council services. Madam Mayor, it's important to recognise that the team's work yields benefits to national government as well as to this Council, particularly in the area of housing benefit fraud. But having said this, the business case for Hillingdon in investing as we have in a team of the highest quality is undeniable, as it yields positive financial returns for us. And of course, these are highly relevant to us in these days of the current financial environment and the growing cost pressures which we face. In the financial year ended 2018-19, the team generated £1.2 million of loss prevention and savings. In the following 2019-20 year, this amounted to 1.9 million. However, we must recognise that the team's activities were heavily curtailed by the impact of COVID-19 during these 2 years. In 21-22, the team generated £3 million worth of savings. However, if we consider the current 22-23 financial year, which of course is not yet over, as of early November 2022, this month, the team had amassed loss prevention and savings amounting to £7.8 million at a point in the year where there were still 4 months to go, and all of this against a full year target of £3.5 million. Madam Mayor, this is an outstanding performance which encompasses areas such as social care, immigration, business rates, council tax, blue badge fraud, as well as housing, and has seen the recovery of 50 council houses at a time when demand for social housing is amongst deserving residents is very high. We must recognise that this performance not only generates record levels of recovery, but it also reinforces our zero tolerance policy towards fraud, while serving as a major formidable deterrent to those contemplating fraudulent activity. Madam Mayor, I'm certain that all members of this chamber will wish to join me in congratulating Alex Brown and his excellent team for this splendid performance. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Goddard. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Lewis?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We now move on to 7.3, a question submitted by Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could the Cabinet Member please update the Council on the outcome of the 2022 Green Flag Awards?
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and my thanks to Councillor Bennett for his question. The awards, which celebrate the most beautiful and well-managed outdoor spaces, nationally and internationally, were given to 4 new sites across the borough this year. Madam Mayor will be familiar with them, having had her picture taken in all of them. And they are Rosedale Park in Hayes, Moorhall Recreation Ground in Harefield, Rockingham Recreation Ground in Uxbridge, and Hillingdon House Farm in Uxbridge. The new addition brings the borough's total to 67. 67. And for those interested in the north-south split, 27 are north and 40 are south. And as most of you will know, having heard this before, we do have the most green flags of any borough. Indeed. The annual Green Flag scheme is judged by a group of environmental charities including Keep Britain Tidy and recognises accessible green space and is the national standard for public parks. To be awarded a flag, parks and green spaces must meet stringent criteria shown to be welcoming, community orientated, friendly to the environment, well managed and clean. The 4 new parks are a variety of parks, but I will talk in particular about Hillingdon House Farm, which for those of you who don't know exactly where we are, it's the leisure space behind the Uxbridge Leisure Centre. It has recently had a biodiversity boost after special waterways were created to help newts and wildlife navigate between the water channels. And most importantly, this work was led by Green Spaces, and my thanks to them for their work, but also by a team of dedicated volunteers. And again, Madam Mayor will remember the walk that we took up there on a slightly wet day. But the volunteers that come every single week to help maintain this space. But if I could give, in closing, my thanks to Stuart Hunt and the Green Spaces team for all of their hard work in getting and keeping these awards. As an aside, I will also recognise the Friends of Eastcote House Gardens, who volunteer to look after the gardens, and in particular the walled garden, and they, on their own account, made an entry into this year's London in Bloom competition and won 4 prestigious awards. So we owe a thanks to them for the hard work they do all year round. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Bennett?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We now move on to item 8, the motions on your sheet, and we're on to 8.1, which is a motion from Councillor Bianco.
Madam Mayor, good evening. You and most of the people in this chamber tonight will recall that a few months ago, this council passed a motion unanimously condemning the Mayor of London's proposal to enlarge the ultra-low emission zone, or ULEZ as it's known in common parlance, to include the outer London boroughs and in particular, of course, Hillingdon. We were aware then, and nothing has changed since, that such a move will have a seriously detrimental effect on many of our residents, as well as those who travel from outside London to work in one of our many businesses or institutions in the borough, including both this council, our schools and the NHS. It's difficult to know whether the Mayor has actually read our response to his consultation, or indeed the very many similar responses made by other boroughs and organisations all opposing the ULEZ expansion. But what we do know is that his decision, which he has now admitted is purely based on raising cash, is now imminent. The purpose of this motion, therefore, is to offer the Mayor a way out of this potentially unpopular move. Not only a better way to spend his money, but one that will actually benefit the residents of this borough and at the same time help his green agenda of encouraging people out of their cars onto public transport. It is good news that after much delay and overspend, Crossrail, or the Elizabethan line as it's now known, is now up and running, offering residents a quick, regular, efficient and fairly green way of accessing central London, all the way from Paddington to Stratford and beyond. However, this offer is only currently open to the residents in the south of the borough, as it doesn't make any sense for those based in the centre or north to travel using current methods to either West Drayton or Hayes and Harlington to pick up a train. However, what this borough lacks, and has for so many years, is an effective, fast or express bus route operating north-south through the borough. This proposal is that such a route be instigated, starting in the north of the borough, linking Uxbridge and Brunel, and ending at the new Elizabethan line connections at West Drayton and Hayes and Harlington. This route would enable our residents, or all our residents perhaps, to make full use of these new transport hubs, and will undoubtedly lead to a reduction in car use, parking problems near these stations, and ultimately an improvement in air quality. As an example, if you were currently to take the U4 bus from Uxbridge to Hayes, the estimated journey time is 31 minutes. With an express bus making fewer stops, along with bus priority measures to improve road junctions, this journey could be halved or better. Madam Mayor, this is not a new idea. The former leader of the council, Sir Ray Puddifoot, met Transport for London as far back as the 23rd of November 2017 to make the case for this new express north-south link bus route. And as you can probably tell, we are still waiting. So I don't expect a quick answer, although I can hope. What the bus is called, where precisely it runs, and how many interim stops it makes are all issues for another day. But let's all be clear. If the mayor wants to do something to help the residents of Hillingdon, some of whom, difficult as it may be for some of us to believe, may have actually voted for him, then this is the way to do it, rather than penalise the poorest with the ULEZ tax. Madam Mayor, we on this side of the House, of the Chamber, believe that an express bus route running north-south through the borough will be an effective and green solution which will benefit our residents. I call, therefore, on those present to support this motion and to send a clear signal to both the GLA member for Ealing and Hillingdon and the Mayor of London that there is a sound alternative to ULEZ and that they should just come and talk to us. Madam Mayor, I was disappointed, as many were, I'm sure, today, to learn that the said member, GLA member for Ealing and Hillingdon, voted in favour of the expansion of the ULEZ scheme today at City Hall. Indeed, worse than that, he proposed the motion. So he clearly isn't paying any attention to the wishes of the Outer London Borough of which he is supposed to represent. Madam Mayor, it's not too late to send a clear signal to the Mayor of London, as he hasn't apparently yet made his decision. So let us send that message, and on that basis, I move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bianco. Is that seconded?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm pleased to second Councillor Bianco's motion. Several months ago, I stood in this chamber and spoke on the ULEZ expansion and how it would be damaging for Hillingdon residents. Since then, in a consultation by the Mayor of London, it's emerged that 66% of Londoners who partook in the consultation were against ULEZ. It's clear that in order to improve the environment, better public transport systems are needed to reduce our reliance on cars. An express route from Uxbridge to Hayes and Harlington and West Drayton stations running through my ward, Colham and Cowley, will go a long way in helping this. If the Mayor is as serious about the environment as he claims, perhaps he should take a leaf out of the book of his predecessor and implement this express route. The previous Conservative Mayor introduced the X26 bus route that runs from Croydon to Heathrow, so we know it's possible. However, even as I say this, I doubt the Mayor will listen. In fact, a recent Highways and Transport Committee meeting in Hillingdon outlined that since 2016, when Sadiq Khan came to power, despite a full request of funds every single year by our wonderful officers here in Hillingdon to repair the roads that TfL are responsible for, including the Uxbridge road that runs through my ward, the Labour Mayor of London has refused to give a single penny towards repairing TfL roads in Hillingdon. How disappointing. And whilst I welcome the Labour Group's initial support in our effort to stop the expansion of ULEZ, let's be clear why we're in this position. The Labour Group in Hillingdon have campaigned tirelessly to support the Mayor, knowing full well that his ULEZ agenda was on the cards. They have fought even harder for our absentee Assembly member, who we now know just this afternoon proposed and voted for the ULEZ expansion to go ahead. In the meantime, it's Hillingdon residents who continue to suffer under a Labour Mayor of London. Their support is therefore somewhat of a red herring, and that should be taken into account by residents who are watching this. Ultimately, Madam Mayor, I care about our environment immensely, but expanding the ULEZ into the outer London boroughs in the middle of a cost of living crisis is so incredibly unhelpful to the hard-working residents of Hillingdon. I would wholeheartedly urge the Mayor not to go ahead with his ULEZ expansion and at the same time invest in Hillingdon, provide this express bus route and take responsibility for TfL roads. Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to second and support Councillor Bianco's motion.
Councillor Curling.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to move the amendment that was circulated earlier this evening. Basically, this amendment, I think there is cross-party agreement opposing the ULEZ, and there's no secret of that fact. This is all about funding, as Councillor Bianco said. Well, if it's all about funding, then it's all about the inadequate funding from the government. And in true cross-party style, I think we should be lobbying government as well as the Mayor, so that government can provide the Mayor of London with a better funding deal for TfL to benefit the residents here in Hillingdon. I also would welcome the U-turn on behalf of the party opposite from going from being a non-lobbying council to now a lobbying council, or perhaps that's a party political decision that they make depending on who it is they're lobbying. So basically this amendment is requesting that the council lobby the government just as much as lobbying the London Mayor, so that we can really work truly cross-party for the benefit of the residents here in Hillingdon. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor May.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to second this motion and just highlight to the Chamber and those watching that this council notes the government has failed to inadequately fund TfL. And this was something brought in and imposed by former Prime Minister and the MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip, Boris Johnson. As you second.
Thank you. Just before we go any further, can we just have a pause, because I haven't had a chance to read the amendment. I'm not sure whether anyone else has. So I think it would just be appropriate just to have a 2-second pause. Is that okay with everyone? Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your patience. I just wanted to make sure I'd read it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for clarification of everybody present, we are now considering an amendment which is the lower half of this piece of paper. It's not very easy to see, but the slightly bold writing is what's been inserted, and the motion, if agreed, would then read as it is in the lower half. The top half are specifically what is proposed to be changed. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Councillor Burrow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't actually going to talk this evening, but in typical Labour group fashion, yet again, 5 minutes before the meeting, a rushed back of a postage stamp amendment which takes away the real reasons for the motion put by my colleague, Councillor Bianco, on behalf of the residents of Hillingdon. This amendment does nothing but blame everyone else apart from the person responsible for this extra tax, unreliable bus services on our residents and their own failures. And that, Madam Mayor, is Sadiq Khan, the Labour Mayor for London. We feel this amendment is poor and should be withdrawn, but if not, this side will be voting against it. And in fact, to save time for this chamber, I'd request, if we are able to go to the vote on the amendment now. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, the leader, Councillor Edwards.
Madam Mayor, I had no intention.
Sorry, can I just clarify? Councillor Burrows can't request that. That can only be requested by somebody who hasn't spoken in the debate, and you clearly just spoke in the debate.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I am now going to actually speak on this because I hadn't intended to. The case against this has been very, very powerfully put by Councillor Burrows, but what I was struck with was by the very last-minute nature of this. We were advised 7 minutes before this meeting, even though we gave 7 days' notice of ours. The disrespectful impact that had on the work of this chamber. We noticed that the circulation was handed out to all members whilst you were making your mayor's announcements. It is quite natural, therefore, that people's attention was distracted from your speech and from the information you were provided, and focused on this amendment that had been dropped at the last moment by the opposition. Yeah. This is a straightforward disrespect to the mayor. It is disrespectful to the people of this borough that the meeting should be disturbed in such way. It has been our long-standing practice that we will rule these out without further debate, and I will not speak any further, but encourage somebody else to do so. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, point of order under Standing Order 1411, Part A, Point 2. I propose that, given the comments made, that amendment now be put to the vote. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, do you want to take the point of order here?
Yes, Councillor Mavis.
Point of clarification that the Labour group did no risk to set. We have no control over when officers distribute materials. I think that should be withdrawn by Councillor.
Madam Mayor, if I could just come in on a couple of those points. Firstly, apologies from my team for handing it out during the middle of your debate. We thought it was important to get the motion out to everybody as soon as possible. We were only given the motion just before the meeting itself. On the motion by Councillor Richard Mills, he's moving a closure motion, which is that the question be now put. There are certain rules about this. One, that a member can only move it if they haven't spoken in debate, which Councillor Mills clearly hasn't. It has to be at the end of a speech by another member, which is correct. It needs seconding.
Is it seconded?
Thank you. And provided that all political groups have had the opportunity to speak, and in your opinion, Madam Mayor, there has been sufficient debate.
Thank you very much. I believe there has been sufficient debate. We have had a chance to look at it, and we have gone across the parlour. So can I just have, is it seconded?
So in that case, Madam Mayor, we now go straight to the vote on the closure motion that the question be now put. So the first vote you're being taken is that we go to a vote, if you see what I mean, on the amendment. So those in favour of the
yeah. So those in favour, please raise your hands.
No, for clarification, this is those in favour that the question be now put.
Thank you very much. So that's agreed. That's 4.
Those against?
Against.
Are there any against?
Are there any against?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In that case, then the mover of the amendment and the mover of the original motion, that's Councillor Curley and Councillor Becker, have the right of reply before we go to a vote on the amendment. So actually, it'll be Councillor Bianco first as moved the original motion, and then...
Me first. Well, I shall be very brief. My colleagues have already said it all on many levels. The Mayor's approach to money is to spend everything he has and more. You've only got to look at the cost overruns on Crossrail to see that he can't be trusted to hold a purse of money. Only to look at the level of the tax rises of the GLA in the time of his office as compared to those of his predecessor, to know that this is just a flimsy excuse. I will be voting against this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Cowling.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a pity that our cross-party relationship has broken down, but unfortunately, without the agreement to ensure that there's a better funding formula for TfL, we can't support the original motion. So it's either working cross-party lobbying those in power above us at regional or national level, or it's not. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, now we're going to the vote on the amendment. So it's the amendment as set out in the lower half of this paper, whether you're for the amendment or against the amendment.
Those for the amendment, please raise your hands. Thank you. You may put your hands down. Those against? Thank you. It is against.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we now return to the original... That amendment is obviously lost. We now return to the original motion, 8.1, as set out in the order paper, and we invite speakers for that, Councillor Mills.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Mills.
And then Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to concentrate on the issue for the residents. What I think we've seen demonstrated tonight is the difference between us. Hillingdon Conservatives put residents first, as can be seen by this motion, that we're actually trying to get an improvement in facilities for this borough. Hillingdon Labour wish to play politics. I agree, they've actually upped their game from the student politics of the last 4 or 5 years, but it's still playing politics and it is not putting residents first. That is a major distinction between us. But the issue I want to give you, Madam Mayor, is a little story. Once upon a time, we had a Mayor of London who recognised that Outer London needed to be treated differently in transport terms from where Central London was. And he set up the Outer London Commission. And we as Hillingdon provided evidence, and I was one of our members who attended a meeting to give evidence about the transport network in Outer London, and in Hillingdon specifically, was far inferior to what was going on in Central London, and we needed a commitment to more funding. And that particular Mayor of London said, once we have completed with Crossrail, and once, which is now obviously the Elizabeth line, and once it is delivering the benefits that it will, we won't need as many bus movements within Central London. And within, and this is the key point, within existing budgets, the Mayor of London then would have been able to move money from Central London bus services to Outer London. And Hillingdon was one of those that would have benefited from an express bus route. Unfortunately, our Mayor of London moved on to higher office. And we ended up with a new Mayor of London, and we all know the result. More expenses, more delay, the Crossrail project being delayed for over 4 years, and surprise, surprise, does Hillingdon get any of that Central London bus money? No. So, Madam Mayor, instead of playing politics, I would strongly urge that the Labour group in Hillingdon say to their contacts, including their GLA member, what we need for the residents of Hillingdon is an express bus service, and you can fund it with an existing funding by moving Central London bus money to Hillingdon. Do they do that? No. And why don't they do that? Because the difference, Madam Mayor, is they don't really care about their residents. They don't understand funding. This side cares about residents, and we understand funding.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. Councillor Riley.
Well, Madam Mayor, I don't know where to start. I just hope that the new express bus works more smoothly than the Labour's method of moving amendments. We have a London mayor who doesn't care about the outer London boroughs. It's not just Hillingdon, it's all outer London boroughs. He doesn't understand them and he doesn't know how to fund them. We have a GLA member who I'm not entirely certain whether he's actually been to Hillingdon or knows where it is, but he certainly doesn't care a jot for the good people of Hillingdon. But this motion is a very good motion because it highlights a problem, and a problem that has been in being for a very long time, as Councillor Mills has just alluded to. East-west is good. You can get into London by any means that you like, and many different means. North-south and round the outer London boroughs has always been a difficulty. Indeed, even trying to get from the north of the borough to the south of the borough for work or for transport is a difficulty. I've been working in Reading for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I would love to get onto the Elizabeth line at Hayes and Hollington and get to Reading, which you can do. But it takes almost as long to get from the north of the borough to Hayes and Hollington in the mornings as it does to then catch the train to Reading, which doesn't make any sense at all. You're halfway there by car, which is not what we're trying to encourage. So, Madam Mayor, all my colleagues on this side of the chamber, I think, rather than house, depends where Councillor Bianco's ambitions actually do lie. Bless him. I support this motion wholeheartedly, but what we should do is this, surely, is to send a message, a very clear message, to our representatives, such as they are in terms of the GLA, but certainly send a message loud and clear to the Mayor of London. Do not abandon the outer London boroughs. Do not abandon Hillingdon. You use it as a cash cow anyway. You might as well put some investment into it and give us the bus services that we need and so richly deserve. I support this motion.
Thank you. Councillor Bianco.
Madam Mayor, much has been said by my colleagues, and I think the motion is quite clear. The fact that this has been going on for 5 years, 5 years ago that Sir Ray Puddifoot went to TfL and said, what about an express bus service? And that absolutely nothing has happened in the meantime, speaks more volumes than anything else. 5 years ago was pre-pandemic, 5 years ago was pre the financial crises that the Mayor has got himself into. There would have been plenty of opportunity to help us then. He hasn't helped us then. I'm not even aware if he's ever visited Hillingdon or any of the outer London boroughs, but he certainly hasn't come here. He certainly hasn't visited us council. I agree entirely with my colleagues who've said he has no interest in the outer London boroughs. We should send this motion in, we should send this letter to him requesting this bus route. I don't hold great hope, but it's something we should do on behalf of our residents.
Thank you. So we shall now vote on the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those against? The motion has been carried. Thank you. We now move on to motion 8.2 on the order sheet from Councillor Farley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to move the motion on the order paper before Council this evening. The energy crisis that we are all experiencing deepens day after day, caused primarily by the invasion of Ukraine by Putin's Russia. While some are temporarily shielded from some of the worst impacts, schools are not in the same position. Their energy costs have risen exponentially, with prices forecast to increase further in the coming year. The government claims that schools across our country are receiving additional funding, but this is being rapidly outstripped by increasing energy costs, staff costs, the cost of providing school meals, transport costs, and fundamental things like the price of paper, exercise books, pens and pencils. This week, we heard that inflation had reached over 11%, the highest since 1981. In a recent survey, 66% of schools said that they would have to make teaching assistants redundant or cut hours. 54% said that they would not be able to balance their budgets without further cuts. This risks larger class sizes and impacts on vulnerable students who would miss out on the additional support that teaching assistants provide. Increases in costs must come from existing budgets. So to provide in one area, such as energy bills, they would have to make cuts in other services and provisions, which would have a direct impact on our residents. We've seen more schools in the borough declare deficits, and we do not wish to see more. The schools in Hillingdon, with the motion before members this evening, asked the Cabinet if they could explore using the Community Infrastructure Levy to fund a programme of renewable energy supplies to alleviate the costs of energy on school budgets. We do not know how much longer the war in Ukraine will go on for, and while we hope for an early peace, we as a council must make ourselves more energy secure as the future, in the future, as the price of fossil fuels is unknown, likely to be volatile, and the cost of renewable energy is many times cheaper. Installation can be rapid and add to the reduction of the borough's carbon footprint. I ask members in the chamber this evening to vote in favour of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this seconded? Councillor Mathen.
Thank you, Mayor. I formally second and reserve my right.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to formally move the amendment shown on the green paper and submitted in good time for everybody to read it. Madam Mayor, I'll be brief, but I'm moving this amendment tonight to Councillor Farley's motion with the intention of making it more relevant to the Council's position and to obtain better value in the spending of SIL or indeed any other appropriate funds to support the work that this Council is already undertaking as part of our green agenda, something that seems to be a popular theme tonight. My colleague Councillor Lavery, who is seconding this amendment, will no doubt explain how we are already spending SIL and other receipts and don't have lots of it spare that we don't know what to do with. Increasing energy costs affects all of us, as do the grave concerns relating to climate change. This administration has for some time been investigating how we can both reduce our carbon footprint as well as save the Council and therefore our taxpayers/residents money through lower increases, or in fact lower increases in council tax. We have recently withdrawn funds from our 5-year carbon zero initiative budget to progress solar opportunities on sites already owned by the Council and to obtain a grid connection, the first step towards establishing a solar farm. This innovative approach will lead to the production of low carbon electricity being fed into the grid, supporting all our residents. We believe that we can build a substantial facility to produce electricity enough to power the equivalent of 12,000 homes. And we estimate that the carbon dioxide savings, the CO2 savings from such a development should amount to more than 16,000 tonnes, approximately 4 times the Council's current CO2 footprint. These are existing projects already underway, which will bring long-term benefits to the Council and therefore our communities and residents. The Council is already invested in this scheme, but bringing it back for further discussion where we can look more closely at any funding streams not previously considered and that may be available to us is a worthwhile exercise. I'm happy for it to go back to Cabinet, and therefore I amend the motion as shown, and I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Bianco. Is that seconded, Councillor Avery?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to second the amendment to the motion proposed by Councillor Bianco. The current cost of energy has wide-ranging impacts on residents, community groups, schools and the Council itself. Councillor Farley's motion focuses on one part of the community only and not the wider needs of the community. The Community Infrastructure Levy funds a wide range of projects across the borough, including roads and pavements, a new leisure centre in West Drayton, and the very popular Chrysalis programme. To name but a few, and I won't lengthen it by doing all of them. We all recognise we need to be more energy efficient and to increase the use of renewable energy going forward. The Council already has a climate change action plan and pledges to reach carbon neutrality. To achieve this, we will need to make existing buildings, including our own housing stock, schools, community buildings, more energy efficient by a variety of means, which will include better insulation, possibly solar panels, and any other technological solutions. The funding for these will come from a variety of sources, including government grants, and our own council housing team, in particular the repairs team, has been very successful in getting money for green homes, and we will continue with those bids. The MTFF budget that you all signed up to earlier in the year included a substantial amount of money for carbon initiatives, and Councillor Bianco has already referenced some of the spend of that. Going forward, the work of the Council will need to ensure that all groups, and that would include schools, know where the relevant grants are and apply for them and know how to be successful in getting them. And for that reason, I therefore support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mabry. Are there any other speakers?
Let's just confirm, Madam Mayor, we are now discussing the proposed amendment, which is set out on the last page.
Right, yes. Councillor Vindel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I stand before you today not only as a councillor, but also as a parent, and would like to share with you my personal story. Only last week, my children brought out thick scarves and gloves to wear to school, not for their journey, but whilst they were sitting in their lessons. When I asked why they needed gloves and scarves in their lessons, I was told, "Mum, it's freezing, and my hands get so cold I cannot write or concentrate." Having reached out to residents with my story, I'm hearing similar from other parents. Did you swear? In order to ventilate the schools, especially during this time when viruses spread quickly, windows are kept open in all classrooms and the building. This is understandable coming out of the COVID pandemic. However, it is truly heartbreaking that any child has to find ways to keep themselves warm, to learn. Children have no choice. They have to go to school. Therefore, it must be our responsibility to use our means to ensure they are provided with a warm environment to do so. We are only at the start of the winter season, and we have an opportunity to help our schools with their energy costs by supporting them with rapidly installing renewable energies that will help them on the financial drain of keeping their buildings warm. I would also like to add that we are still waiting in the Resident Services Select Committee on an update of the progress made towards the Council's commitment to net zero, and I'm personally disappointed that this has once again been delayed to next year, especially in light of the current energy crisis and climate emergency. Whilst I acknowledge the amendment to the original motion to broaden the scope of the Community Infrastructure Levy funding and other funding sources used on council land, the energy crisis is not going away, and therefore I would implore the Council to make schools a priority.
Thank you, Councillor Punja. Sorry, I couldn't see your name on the thing. The light was shining. Councillor Sweeting. Can you put your microphone on, Councillor Sweeting? Use Councillor Farley's. Can you use Councillor Farley's?
Madam Mayor, I speak on the amendment. It is with concern that this council has replaced a motion which specifically targeted supporting Hillingdon schools and Hillingdon children to a generalised watered-down one which would spread seal money very thinly. It was to be hoped that our council would have taken this opportunity to put right just a very small part of the funding shortfall which schools have experienced for so long. Rishi Sunak as Chancellor pledged to restore pupil funding to 2010 levels in real terms by the end of this Parliament. But as the Institute of Fiscal Studies has reported only recently, that despite funding hikes, rising costs will leave schools worse off by 2024. The IFS has gone on to say that school budgets are on track to be worth 3% less in real terms than in 2010, when Labour left office. Even the 2.3 million extra announced today in the budget is unlikely to fully address this funding gap. The National Association of Head Teachers predicts that 9 out of 10 schools may run out of money in the next academic year due to the perfect storm of high energy costs and the much needed increases to staff wages, which will, even with increases, fall well below, in real terms, their 2010 level. Recent funding increases have all but wiped out budget increases, and London boroughs such as Hillingdon are particularly hard hit with reducing roles in the primary sector, resulting in projected school budget deficits. The amendment considers the rollout of solar panels and others on council-owned land as having a more widespread benefit. However, this must be balanced against...
Sorry, Councillor Sweeting. Can we be quiet, please? Sorry, you can carry on.
However, this must be balanced against targeting our cash-strapped schools and our children who have had to endure what no previous generation has had to endure, a pandemic, lasting consequences to their future life chances. The original motion showed loud and clear that this council, our council, was on the side of its schools and our children and recognised the unique funding crisis they are experiencing. The amended version is likely to deliver some benefits, but maybe these can be compared a year from now to the list of Hillingdon schools which will have fallen into budget deficits. It is still time to think again and revert to the original motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeting. No other speakers? Then we will move to Councillor Farley with the right to reply.
The mover of the original motion has the right to reply on the amendment, and then Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have a lot to say on the matter, really. I mean, I understand the sentiment of expanding the scope, but what we were looking at here was particularly for schools because of the situation they're in, unlike residents who have had some reduction to do with the energy price guarantee, but this is a sort of a more unique thing for schools because they are constrained by their budgets. So that's the reason why it's gone down that line. I understand the sentiments. I mean, it's just unfortunate that the reasons for this motion haven't been sort of looked at from that point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farley. We now go back to Councillor Bianco.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to make it clear, the purpose of my amendment is to make abundantly clear that we're putting our residents first, all our residents first. And what I've failed to understand, Councillor Lavery pointed out just some of the things that we currently spend SIL money on. What exactly is it the other side would like us to cut in order to provide SIL funds in the direction they suggest? Everybody is suffering at the moment from a cost of living crisis, not just schools, but most of our, I would think nearly all of our residents, as well as the firms that thrive in the borough or don't thrive as well as they were, and the institutions, whether it's the NHS or the council itself, or care homes and the like. Everybody is suffering, and this council believes that it can do more good on projects that will benefit all our residents than just a narrow band. I fully appreciate that schools are having a tough time, but then so is everybody else. On that basis, I move the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bianco. We are now voting on the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hands. Thank you. Those against? Thank you. The amendment has now been moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That becomes a substantive motion to which further amendments can be moved, or if there are none, then we vote on the substantive motion for and against.
Are there any?
No, if there are none, we have to vote on the substantive motion.
So we are now voting on the substantial motion. Those in favour? Those against? Okay, that's counted. That's it. Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the council meeting. I do welcome you to the parlour afterwards, so please come and join me afterwards to the parlour. I now close this meeting. Thank you.